"Ma'am, please save my dad," he cried, his voice high-pitched and frantic. It poured relentlessly over Atlanta that night, washing away the noise, the heat, the light, and nearly a man's life. Elliot Carter Sr., one of the wealthiest tech moguls in the South, sat slumped behind the wheel of his Bentley, parked crookedly on the shoulder of a dimly lit road just outside Buckhead. His chest was tight, his vision blurred, his breath shallow. He had pulled over minutes earlier, dismissing the dizziness as fatigue, but this was no ordinary exhaustion. In the back seat, his 5-year-old son, Elliot Jr., pressed both palms against his father's shoulder. "Daddy, please wake up, please." No answer, only the rhythmic drumming of rain on metal. The boy's small voice trembled. Tears streamed down the boy's cheeks as he pushed open the door. The wind almost knocked him over, and the rain soaked through his little hoodie in seconds. He didn't know where to go. He just knew someone had to help. A young black woman stood there in a faded gray coat, clutching a small purse to her chest. Maya Williams, 29, was exhausted after another long shift washing dishes at the diner. She'd once been a nurse, until speaking out against a doctor's abuse cost her license. She looked up, startled, as the boy ran straight to her. "Ma'am, ma'am," he gasped, tugging at her sleeve. "Ma'am, please save my dad. He's not moving." "Nami." Maya blinked, her brain needing a second to catch up. "What? What happened?" "He fell asleep, I think. In the car. He won't wake up. I tried calling, but please, he's not breathing right." He tugged at her arm. A shiver ran down Maya's spine. She hadn't heard those words in almost 3 years, not since she'd been dismissed from county medical for speaking out about malpractice. Since then, she'd sworn to keep her head down. But this child, his eyes were pleading in a way that cut deeper than any lawsuit or career loss. "Take me to him," she said. Without another word, the boy turned and ran, and Maya followed, her sneakers slipping on the slick pavement until they reached the Bentley. The headlights flickered weakly, illuminating the man inside. His lips were blue. "Stay back, sweetheart," she said gently. "I'll help him." She pulled open the door and laid the man back, checking his airway and pulse. Faint barely there, she began compressions, counting aloud to steady herself. 1, 2, 3, breathe, come on, stay with me. Her soaked sleeves clung to her arms, the storm blurring everything around her. Suddenly, tires screeched behind her. A black Mercedes stopped sharply, and an older woman stepped out, Helen Carter, elegant in a long coat. "Wait, before we continue, if this story touched your heart, please hit subscribe. It truly encourages us to bring you more powerful stories. Tell us in the comments where you're watching from. We'd love to know our amazing viewers around the world." Diamonds glinting even under the rain. The sight that met her eyes made her blood boil. Her son, limp in a stranger's arms, and that stranger a black woman pressing on his chest. Helen's face twisted in panic and rage. "What are you doing to my son?" she screamed, rushing forward. Maya turned, panting. "Ma'am, he's having a heart attack. I'm trying to—" Before she could finish, Helen's umbrella crashed into her shoulder. "Liar! Get away from him!" The older woman struck again, this time slapping Maya across the face, the sharp crack lost beneath the thunder. "Grandma, stop!" Elliot Jr. cried from the curb, but she didn't listen. She grabbed Maya by the coat collar, yanking her backward. "Please let me help him," Maya gasped, struggling to keep her footing. Her knees hit the wet asphalt, but she pushed forward again. "If I stop, he'll die." Helen shoved her once more, the umbrella handle slamming into Maya's back. "You people never know your place. Get away." Maya winced in pain but crawled closer to the car door, eyes locked on the man's still chest. Her voice broke, desperate. "He's not breathing. Please, just let me." The boy screamed. "She's helping, Grandma. Daddy needs her." Helen froze for half a second, just long enough for Maya to seize the moment. She slipped past the older woman and resumed compressions, her palms pressing into the billionaire's chest with steady rhythm despite her bruised ribs. "Come on," she whispered through clenched teeth. "Don't kid on me now." Rain poured through the open door, drenching them both. Her muscles screamed, but she didn't stop. Then a twitch, a gasp. The man's body jerked slightly under her hands. Maya leaned close. That's it. Breathe. Come on, sir, breathe. Elliot Carter Sr. coughed, water and air forcing their way back into his lungs. His eyes fluttered open, unfocused but alive. Helen dropped the umbrella, her expression shattering into disbelief. Elliot? But before anyone could speak again, red and blue lights flashed through the storm. 2 police cruisers skidded to a stop nearby. Officers jumped out, their flashlights slicing through the rain. One officer grabbed Maya's arm. "Ma'am, step back now." "She saved him," Elliot Jr. shouted, running toward them. "She saved my daddy." Helen, still in shock, stammered. She attacked him, I think." "No," Maya tried to explain, breathless. "He collapsed. I was giving CPR. I'm a former nurse, check his pulse. He's alive because—" "Ma'am, that's enough," one officer interrupted, twisting her wrists behind her. The boy cried harder. "Don't take her. She didn't do anything." Maya met his tearful gaze as they guided her toward the patrol car. Her back ached where she'd been struck. Her face burned, but she forced a small, tired smile. "It's okay, honey," she whispered. "Your daddy's safe now." Behind her, Elliot Sr. stirred again, his lips moving weakly as paramedics arrived. The last thing Maya saw before the cruiser door closed was the boy clutching his father's hand and the older woman standing in the rain, frozen between guilt and disbelief. As the car pulled away, sirens echoing through the wet night, Maya leaned her head against the cold window. Her body trembled, not from fear, but from the ache of holding on when every instinct said to let go. Sometimes saving a life meant losing your own peace. And somewhere behind her, a billionaire gasped his first breath back into the world because a woman he'd never met refused to stop. If this moved you, hit like and drop your city in the comments. Who knows? Someone nearby might be watching with you. The patrol car was cold inside, the vinyl seat sticking to Maya's soaked jeans. Her hands, cuffed behind her, tingled with numbness, whether from the cold or adrenaline. She couldn't tell. The rain still pounded against the roof as the vehicle idled beside the scene. Through the fogged window, Maya could see the flashing ambulance lights now surrounding the Bentley. Paramedics knelt beside Elliot Carter Sr., placing oxygen tubes, checking vitals. He was alive. That should have meant something. But right now, it didn't mean freedom. The officer in the passenger seat turned to glance at her. His face was unreadable. He was white, maybe in his late 40s, with tired eyes and a badge that looked too heavy for his chest. "Name?" he asked. "Maya Williams," she said quietly, teeth clattering slightly from the cold. He wrote something down. "You got ID?" "It's in my purse, on the sidewalk," she said. "I dropped it when you assaulted the man in the car," he interrupted, not looking at her. Maya stiffened. "I didn't assault him. I saved his life." "That's not what his mother said. She hit me. Pulled me away while I was doing CPR," Maya snapped, the sting of that moment still fresh on her back. "Look at my shoulder. Look at my face." The officer's pen paused in the middle of his notebook. He looked at her, finally seeing the red handprint still faintly visible on her cheek. "Why would she hit you?" Maya's throat tightened. She had no clean answer for that. Because she was black? Because she wasn't in a uniform? Because a woman like Helen Carter couldn't imagine a world where a stranger who looked like Maya would choose to save her son instead of harm him? She didn't speak. The rear door opened. Another officer leaned in taller, Latino, early 30s. His expression was more alert. "We just got confirmation," he said. "Paramedics say she initiated CPR. Kid confirmed it too. She kept him alive until we got there." The older cop looked over his shoulder at Maya. "That true?" Maya nodded slowly. "Yes." The younger officer tilted his head slightly. "She used correct technique. Paramedics said her form was textbook. Probably saved the guy. She says she used to be a nurse," the older one muttered. "I still am," Maya said, lifting her chin. "Just not licensed. Not anymore." The younger cop gave a tight nod and stepped back from the door. "You want to press charges?" the older officer asked. "No," Maya said sharply. "But I want it on the record that I was struck, physically assaulted. I did not fight back. I didn't touch anyone except to save a life." The silence that followed was long. Then, without another word, the older officer opened her door, reached down, and unlocked her cuffs. "You're free to go, Miss Williams." Maya pulled her arms around to the front, wincing at the stiffness. She stepped out into the rain again, weaker than before. As she walked back toward the scene, Elliot Jr. broke away from a paramedic and ran straight into her legs. "You're not going to jail," he cried, wrapping his arms around her. Maya crouched slowly, despite the ache in her knees. She hugged him back, her voice soft. "No, baby, I'm not." "No." Behind them, Helen Carter stood near the ambulance, a wool coat over her shoulders now, expression tight and unreadable. Her eyes landed on Maya, but this time they didn't burn with rage. They just looked tired, confused, possibly even ashamed. Maya didn't approach her. She had done her part. The rest wasn't hers to carry. "Miss?" A medic waved her over. "We need your information for the hospital report." Maya nodded, gently letting go of Elliot Jr., who still clung to her coat like a lifeline. She gave her name, address, and what remained of her professional credentials. The medic looked surprised when she listed off precise terminology for chest compressions and vitals. "You sure you're not active duty?" he asked with a half-smile. Maya exhaled. "Not anymore." He jotted it down and handed her a blanket, which she wrapped around her shoulders. It smelled like antiseptic and warmth. "Do you have someone who can pick you up?" he asked. Maya shook her head. "Bus stops down the street. I'll be fine." Before she could turn to go, a low, hoarse voice rasped from the gurney behind the ambulance doors. "Wait." It was Elliot Carter Sr. He had an oxygen mask on, eyes half-lidded, but they were trained directly on her. "You," he whispered. "You saved me." Maya stepped closer, blinking against a fresh wave of rain and disbelief. "I did what I had to do," she said softly. His lips moved again. "Thank you." The medic interrupted. "Sir, we need to get moving." But Elliot held up a finger weakly, and his eyes didn't leave Maya's. "She didn't hurt me," he said, with surprising clarity. "She helped me." Helen flinched behind the medics. Maya said nothing. Her silence, this time, held the weight of restraint, not fear. The ambulance doors closed with a thud, and the sirens started up again. As the lights faded into the distance, Maya pulled the blanket tighter around herself. Her whole body felt like it had run through fire and ice, bruised, sore, soaked but standing. One of the officers approached her again. "If you want to file a formal complaint against the older woman, we can take a statement." Maya looked down the street, the storm thinning into drizzle. She remembered the boy's tiny hands pulling on her sleeve, the cracked voice begging, "Please save my dad." She shook her head. "Not tonight." He looked surprised. "Are you sure?" Maya nodded. "Some things are bigger than a slap." He hesitated, then said, "You're a good one, Miss Williams." "No," she replied. "I'm just stubborn." She walked back to the bus stop, her soaked shoes squishing with every step. And though she was alone again, something inside her had shifted. She had acted on instinct, on skill, on heart, and not once did she regret it. Because when a child begs for a miracle, sometimes you become one without even meaning to. Maya sat alone at the back of the nearly empty MARTA bus, her body curled into the blanket a medic had given her. The bus hummed low, fluorescent lights flickering above her. The driver hadn't said much when she stepped aboard, only offered a nod and a glance at her muddy shoes. She appreciated the quiet. She didn't have the strength for small talk. The bruises on her back throbbed in sync with the beat of the road beneath the wheels. Each bump sent a dull pain through her shoulders. But that wasn't what hurt most. What lingered was the way Helen Carter's voice had sliced through the rain with venom that felt far older than the moment itself. "She looked at me like I didn't belong," Maya whispered to no one, "like I was the danger, even when I was saving him." She pulled the blanket tighter. The city passed outside the window in streaks of wet neon and shadow, a familiar blur. This part of Atlanta, her part wasn't in the brochures. Cracked sidewalks, corner stores with metal grates, graffiti on brick. The kind of place no billionaire ever visited unless they were lost or looking for something they didn't want to admit they needed. Her stop came. She stepped off, shoes squishing against the curb, the wind sharp against her face. A group of men stood under the awning of a liquor store nearby, arguing about football. One glanced her way, did a double take when he saw the hospital blanket around her shoulders. "If you're still here and enjoying the story, we'd love your support. Take a second to hit subscribe. It really means a lot," then looked away. She didn't care. The walk to her building was short but felt like a mile. She unlocked the front door of the unit she shared with her aunt, a small, two-bedroom apartment on the second floor. As she stepped in, the warm scent of peppermint tea and fabric softener met her like an old friend. "Maya?" a voice called from the kitchen. "You're late, baby. You okay?" Her aunt, Lorraine, appeared in her nightgown, robe tied tight, gray curls tucked into a bonnet. Maya gave her a tired smile. "I'm okay, Auntie. Just had a long night." Lorraine took one look at her face, the faint swelling, the scratch on her temple, and her eyes narrowed. "That ain't a long night, child. That's a fight." Maya shook her head. "It wasn't what it looked like." Lorraine crossed her arms. "Then tell me what it was." So Maya did. She told her everything. About the little boy who found her. The man in the car. The CPR. The slap. The cuffs. And the quiet gratitude from a man she'd nearly died saving. Lorraine listened, silent and still. When Maya finished, her aunt exhaled deeply. "And they let you walk home after that?" "I took the bus." Lorraine stared at her. "You should have let me know. You should have called. I didn't want you to worry." "Honey," she said, her voice thick with emotion, "worrying is what I do. It's how I know I still got you." Maya finally Saturday, her body slumped forward, drained. "I didn't think I'd ever do that again," she said. "Use what I know. Not after what happened at County." "You didn't think you'd save someone?" "I didn't think anyone would let me." Lorraine reached for her hand. "You didn't wait for permission, did you?" "No," Maya whispered. "I just heard the boy's voice. That's all I needed." They sat like that for a long time, no TV, no music, just the quiet creak of pipes and the hum of the fridge. Then Lorraine stood. "You need rest. Ice that shoulder. You're going to be sore in the morning." "I already am." Before heading to her room, Lorraine paused. "You did right, Maya, even if the world's too scared or proud to say so." Maya nodded. But her eyes stayed on the window, watching the last drops of rain trail down the glass. Her mind drifted back to the boy's face. His desperation. His hope. "He believed me," she thought. That was enough. The next morning, the city woke slowly under gray skies and wet streets. Maya sat on the couch, a cold pack pressed to her shoulder, flipping through local news on her phone. She scrolled past headlines until one froze her hand mid-swipe. "Billionaire, saved by stranger after medical emergency, identity unknown." She tapped it open. A blurry photo taken from a distance showed the Bentley, the ambulance, police tape. No names yet. But the comments were already flooding in. "Bet it was staged. Probably someone trying to get a lawsuit or payout. Looks like another scam. Hope that woman didn't hurt him." Maya swallowed hard. Even without being named, she was already under suspicion. She turned off the screen. Later that afternoon, as she sorted laundry, her phone rang from the kitchen counter. Unknown number. She hesitated, then answered. "Miss Williams," a man's voice said. "This is Dr. Kaminsky from Atlanta Regional. I was the attending physician last night when Mr. Elliot Carter Sr. was admitted." "Yes, doctor," she said cautiously. "I wanted to reach out personally," he said. "Mr. Carter is stable now, and he insisted we contact you." Maya's breath caught. "Is he all right?" "He's recovering well, thanks to your early intervention. In fact, he said his exact words, 'She's the reason I'm here.'" She sat down slowly. Her legs had started shaking. "I know this must have been traumatic," the doctor continued, "but I hope you'll consider coming by. Mr. Carter wants to speak with you when you're ready." Maya looked at the calendar on the wall. The date glared back at her. The anniversary of the day she was fired from County. She closed her eyes. "I'll come," she said. "Tell him I'll come." The hospital lobby smelled like bleach and resignation. Maya paused at the automatic doors before stepping in, her reflection briefly caught in the glass. The purple-blue bruise on her cheek had started to fade but was still visible under light makeup. She wore her best shirt, a modest blouse she'd ironed 3 times that morning, and her cleanest jeans. It was the most dignity she could afford. At the check-in desk, a nurse with a cheery badge and tired eyes glanced up. "Name?" "Maya Williams," she said, her voice firmer than she expected. "I'm here to see Mr. Elliot Carter Sr." The nurse blinked, clearly recognizing the name, and typed something quickly. Room 718. He's expecting you. Then, after a pause, I think he'll be glad you came. Maya gave a faint nod and made her way toward the elevator, her shoes clicking softly on the tile. As the doors closed around her, she exhaled slowly. It had been 3 days since that night. 3 days of bruises and silence and too many phone calls from news reporters who somehow found her number. She hadn't answered a single one. But this was different. Room 718 was on the corner, with a view of the city skyline stretching toward the horizon. Maya stood at the threshold for a moment, the door already open. The man in the bed was propped up slightly, ivy lines taped to his arm, color slowly returning to his cheeks. Elliot Carter Sr. looked smaller than she remembered. Not weak, just real. No suits, no headlines. Just a man recovering from the edge of death. He turned when he heard the rustle of her shoes. His eyes met hers, calmer now, clearer. "Maya Williams," he said, voice hoarse but strong. "I was hoping you'd come. I wasn't sure I should. I'm glad you did." She stepped in, unsure whether to shake his hand, bow her head, or just stand there. He sensed it. "You can sit, please." There was a visitor's chair beside the bed, clean and unoccupied. She took it. Neither of them spoke for a moment. Elliot broke the silence. "They told me everything. The doctors, my son, the paramedics. I owe you my life." Maya folded her hands in her lap. "I didn't do it for a thank you." "I know. That's what makes it harder to say." She looked at him then, really looked, and found no smugness, no entitlement. Just a man who had nearly died, trying to grasp what had happened. "Why did you help me?" he asked, his tone sincere, not suspicious. Maya hesitated. "Because your son asked me to. And because I knew what to do." His eyes softened. "My mother. She told me what she did, what she thought." Maya sat up straighter, the tension returning. "I'm not pressing charges. If that's what you're worried about." "I'm not," he said quickly. "I mean, I wouldn't blame you if you did. But no, that's not what this is about." He reached for the cup of water on his tray, his hand slightly shaking. Maya instinctively stood to help but stopped herself. "I've spent a lot of my life in control," he said, sipping carefully. "Running companies, investments, buying influence. I always assumed I could fix anything with a phone call." He set the cup down. "But lying on that sidewalk, gasping like a fish, and seeing you over me, taking hits just to keep me alive, that broke something I didn't know needed breaking." Maya didn't know what to say. Her chest tightened. It continued. "I've asked myself, what would have happened if someone else had found me? Would they have walked past, filmed me, left me to die? And the truth is, I don't know. But you didn't." "I couldn't," Maya said quietly. "That boy, he looked at me like I was the only hope left." "You were." He looked down at the IV in his arm. "You still are." There was a knock at the door. Both turned to see Helen Carter standing at the threshold, holding a small bouquet of white lilies. She stepped in slowly, her eyes avoiding Maya's for a full 5 seconds before she finally forced them up. "Maya," she said, her voice trembling, "I'd like to speak to you, if you'll allow it." Maya stood, her fingers tightening on the chair. "I don't need an apology," she said, measured. "What I needed was a chance to save someone without being treated like a threat." Helen nodded once, her face pale. "And you did. You saved my son. I would have saved anyone. I know that now." "Mun." Maya studied her. There was no arrogance in her voice anymore, just something fragile, like regret. Elliot watched quietly, letting the two women navigate what couldn't be undone. Helen stepped closer, gently set the flowers on the windowsill. "I was wrong," she said. "Blinded by fear, by old wounds that had nothing to do with you. And I hurt you, when you were doing the most selfless thing anyone's ever done for this family." Maya didn't speak. Her silence was more eloquent than any response. "If there's any way I can make it right," Maya finally responded, "start by teaching your grandson what courage really looks like. Because he was brave. He chose trust when everyone else chose fear." Helen swallowed hard and nodded. Then quietly she turned and left the room. The silence that followed felt cleaner somehow, like something had been cleared out, painful but necessary. Elliot smiled faintly. You're not like anyone I've ever met. Maya exhaled. Good. He laughed only a little, because it still hurt. You'll come back, right? Let my son thank you properly? I don't know, she said. Maybe. Can I call you? Maya smiled for the first time. That depends. Are you going to ask for investment advice? He chuckled again, this time softer. No, I just want to hear your voice without dying first. She turned to leave, but before she reached the door, Elliot called after her. Maya? Yeah? Thank you for saving me, and not letting them stop you. She nodded. Next time, she said, just stay alive without all the drama. Maya didn't sleep that night. She tried. She lay in bed, the ceiling fan circling overhead, the hum of the refrigerator leaking from the kitchen like a slow, dull metronome. But her eyes wouldn't close, and when they did, her mind ran faster than her body could rest. The conversation with Elliot Carter Sr. echoed in her head, his voice calm, fragile, grateful. And Helen Carter's apology, stiff and trembling, like a chair with uneven legs. It had felt real, but even reality didn't erase bruises, not the ones under her skin or in her history. Maya stared at the ceiling and thought about what it meant to be seen for the first time, not as a threat or a mistake or a cautionary tale, but as a healer, a protector. She hadn't worn a nurse's uniform in nearly 3 years, but for 9 minutes on a stormy sidewalk, with nothing but her hands and her instinct, she had been exactly what she used to be, maybe even more. She finally rose just after 5 a.m., tugged on a hoodie, and stepped outside. The morning air was cool, washed clean by the storm. She walked a few blocks to her favorite coffee spot, a little local joint called Deacon's Brew, where the staff knew her order and never rushed her. The owner, a bald man in his 60s named Glenn, nodded as she entered. Early today, he said. Couldn't sleep. He didn't ask why, just poured her regular, strong black coffee with a splash of oat milk and a pinch of cinnamon. She sat by the window and stared at the world slowly waking up: mail trucks, joggers, buses, high school kids with backpacks too heavy for their posture. Her phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. You saved my father. I hope you'll let me see you again soon. Elliot Jr., with some help from Grandma typing. Maya smiled despite herself. She typed back a simple, You're very brave. Tell your dad I said hello. She pocketed the phone and tried to sip the rest of her coffee, but a voice broke her thoughts. You Maya Williams? She turned. A man stood near her table. Early 42nds. White, with sharp eyes and a press badge on a lanyard around his neck. I'm Adam Fielder. I work with Channel 8 News. She straightened. I'm not interested in interviews. May, I'm not asking for one. Just wanted to say I saw the paramedic report. I know you saved him. I also know how they treated you after. Maya gave a tight nod. You're about the 10th reporter to find me. Why are you different? Because I'm not here for a headline. I'm here for the truth. You didn't ask for any of this attention. And still, you stepped up. I think people need to hear that. She eyed him carefully. Why? So you can spin it into a feel-good piece and boost your ratings? No, he said. So they remember what justice actually looks like, what it feels like. Maya didn't speak. He pulled a card from his wallet, slid it across the table. When you're ready to talk, not before. Then he left. She stared at the card for a long time, unsure whether to tear it up or tuck it away. In the end, she slipped it into her purse. Later that afternoon, as she folded laundry back at the apartment, Aunt Lorraine stepped in from the hallway with a slightly suspicious expression. You expecting company? Maya frowned. No. Then you better come to the door. She wiped her hands and followed. A tall man stood at the threshold, broad shoulders, pressed shirt, a familiar quiet in his gaze. Elliot Carter Sr., alive and walking. Hope this isn't too forward, he said, but I had my assistant find your address. You're recovering. You shouldn't be moving around like this. Doctor cleared me, said fresh air would help, so would closure. Maya stepped aside and let him in. Lorraine offered coffee, but Elliot politely declined. He sat on the edge of the couch, like he didn't quite believe he was welcome. I needed to see where you came from, he said, where you went back to. And? It's humble, but steady, like you. Maya crossed her arms. You're not here just to compliment my furniture. No, Elliot admitted. I'm here to make an offer. She bristled. If this is a reward, I'm not interested. It's not a reward, he said quickly. It's a proposal, a real one. I run a foundation in my wife's name. It supports medical scholarships, especially for women of color. I want to sponsor you. Fully. Back to school, license, everything. Maya stared. Why me? Because you didn't just save me. You did it while being dragged, hit, doubted, and you still didn't stop. That kind of heart skill grace? It's rare. I don't want pity. It's not pity, Elliot said. It's respect, and a little bit of selfishness. I want the woman who saved my life to help save others again. Maya looked away, jaw tight. You think you can just walk into my life and fix everything with a scholarship? No, he said quietly. But I can try to repair what people like me helped break. She let that sit in the air for a long time. Then, softly, I haven't worn a white coat in years. Maybe it's time you wore one again. Elliot stood, adjusting his jacket. Think about it. Take your time. You don't owe me anything. But maybe you owe it to yourself. He handed her a folder, thick with paperwork, details, and the foundation seal. Then he left, not waiting for applause or thanks. Maya didn't open the folder until after sunset. She sat at the kitchen table, flipped it open, and stared at the words. Full academic re-entry. Tuition, materials, housing support if needed. Letter from the board. Maya Williams is a candidate of exceptional resilience and integrity. She touched the paper like it might disappear, and for the first time in a long time, she cried. Maya stood outside the campus of Emory University School of Nursing, staring through the iron gate as students buzzed in and out of buildings, backpacks slung over shoulders, coffee cups in hand, lives in forward motion. The chill of early spring clung to the air, but the trees were starting to bloom soft whites and pinks stretching toward the Georgia sky like they'd forgotten winter ever happened. She tightened her grip on the admissions envelope. Her name was printed cleanly on the top. Maya Nicole Williams. Below it, in elegant lettering, full scholarship awarded by the Lillian Carter Foundation for Medical Excellence. 3 weeks had passed since Elliot Carter Sr. handed her that folder. She hadn't said yes immediately. She wasn't ready. The pain from that night had started to fade, but the weight of what it meant hadn't. Accepting the scholarship felt like crossing a bridge she didn't build. And yet, here she was. She stepped through the gate, her steps measured, her heart heavier than she let on. The campus was beautiful, yes, but it also reminded her of what she'd lost, of who she'd been before that night at County Medical, when her license had been suspended, her reputation buried under bureaucracy and cowardice. But Elliot's words rang in her ears. Maybe it's time you wore the coat again. She entered the admissions building and followed the signs toward the orientation office. Inside, a secretary greeted her politely, handed her a schedule, a student ID, and a packet with information she already knew by heart. Then came the moment. The woman reached beneath the desk and pulled out a folded, pressed, brand-new white coat. A name tag was already stitched onto it. M. Williams, student, RN. Welcome back, Miss Williams, the secretary said with a kind smile. Looks good on you. Maya took it with both hands. It felt heavier than it looked. Not just fabric, but years of doubt, anger, grief, hope, the weight of return. She didn't try it on just yet. Instead, she walked out of the building and found a quiet bench near a fountain. She sat there for a long while, coat in her lap, watching students laugh and share notes and complain about professors. Normal things, things she'd missed. Her phone buzzed. A text from Lorraine. Proud of you. Don't you dare back out now. Then another, from an unfamiliar number. Hi, it's Elliot Jr. Dad says you're a nurse again. I told him you never stopped being one. Maya smiled. Her thumb hovered over the reply button when another text came in. P.S. Will you come over for dinner sometime? Dad's cooking. He says it's safe now. She chuckled, but before she could reply, a voice cut through her thoughts. Well, if it isn't Atlanta's miracle worker. She turned. Adam Fielder, the reporter from Channel 8, stood a few feet away, hands in his pockets, camera bag slung across his shoulder. She tensed. I didn't agree to an interview. Zell. I'm not here for that, he said quickly. Promise. I was meeting a contact in the next building. Saw you through the window. She raised an eyebrow. So you decided to come say hi? I did. And to give you this. He pulled a folded piece of paper from his jacket. It was a printed copy of an article. The title read, When Courage Isn't Convenient, the Maya Williams story. I didn't run it, he said. My editor approved it. I pulled it. Maya blinked. Why? Because I realized it wasn't mine to tell yet. Not without you. She looked at him, surprised. Most reporters wouldn't care. I do, he said. I saw something that night, something bigger than headlines. I saw a woman do what no one else would. And then I saw people try to twist it. That story deserves better than a news cycle. He placed the article beside her on the bench. If you ever want to tell it on your terms, I'll be here. No rush, no pressure. Maya nodded slowly. Thank you. Adam turned to go, then paused. You really going back into medicine? I am, she said, lifting the coat from her lap. One class at a time. Good, he said. Atlanta needs you, even if it doesn't know it yet. When he left, Maya finally stood, unfolded the white coat, and slid it over her shoulders. It didn't feel like redemption. It felt like reclaiming. That evening, back at the apartment, Lorraine made cornbread and greens. Because comfort food is holy, she said. Maya sat at the kitchen table, coat still on, flipping through textbooks already dog-eared and highlighted. You look like you never left. Lorraine smiled, watching her from across the room. I feel like I'm just getting started. A knock came at the door. Lorraine raised an eyebrow. You expecting someone? Maya shook her head and opened it. Standing there, holding a small bouquet of sunflowers and a nervous grin, was Elliot Jr. He wore a tie much too big for him. Behind him stood Elliot Sr., holding a casserole dish awkwardly in both hands. We brought dinner, Elliot Sr. said. Elliot cooked. I stirred. The boy corrected proudly. Maya stood there, stunned. Lorraine peeked over Maya's shoulder. Well, don't just let the food get cold. Come on in. As the boy rushed in, trailing the scent of baked cheese and something vaguely Italian, Maya looked at Elliot Sr. I didn't say yes to dinner yet. I know, he said. I was hoping you'd say yes with your appetite. She stared at him a moment longer, then stepped aside. Fine, she said. But if it's awful, I'm walking out with the pan. He laughed. Inside, the lights were warm, the food was real, and for the first time in years, Maya felt something she hadn't let herself feel. Home. The casserole was surprisingly decent. Not great. Elliot Jr. had gone heavy on the oregano, and the top layer of cheese had singed in one corner, but it was warm, filling, and, more importantly, made with the kind of care that didn't come from recipes. Maya sat at the dinner table, still in her white coat, the scent of baked pasta mingling with the subtle lavender of Lorraine's plug-in air freshener. Elliot Jr. had already finished his first plate and was working on seconds, talking animatedly about how he wanted to be a scientist, and also a fireman, and also maybe a heart doctor like the one who helped Daddy. Elliot Sr. chuckled quietly at his son's ambitions. Multitasker, he said. Maya gave him a sidelong look. Didn't think billionaires made casseroles. I didn't, he replied, whispering. But I watched a woman on YouTube do it twice. Lorraine, seated across from them, let out a soft laugh. You're not half bad for a man with 5 assistants. Only 4 now, Elliot said. One quit after I asked her to organize my spice rack. The conversation was light, flowing easily in the small apartment. But under the laughter, under the clinking of forks and the stories from a 5-year-old boy with more energy than sense, Maya felt a tension building. Not the uncomfortable kind, but the kind that signaled something was coming. Something she'd have to face. She felt it most when Elliot Sr. grew quiet. You all right? She asked him. He nodded slowly. I've been thinking about everything. That covers a lot of ground. He set his fork down, looked directly at her. I thought I understood how the world worked, who I could trust, what danger looked like. Maya stayed silent, letting him get there on his own. But that night, the way you fought to save me, even while being hit, pulled, doubted. He swallowed. You didn't stop. She leaned back. I didn't have time to second guess. If I'd hesitated, you'd be dead. Most people would have walked away. Maybe, she said. But your son didn't let me. Elliot Jr. piped up with a mouthful of cornbread. She's a real hero, Daddy, like the ones in the movies. Maya smiled at him. Heroes usually don't have bruised ribs and overdue rent, kiddo. You can have both, he replied confidently. The moment lingered. Then came the knock at the door. 3 sharp raps. Lorraine stood, wary. You expecting someone else? Maya shook her head. Elliot Sr. tensed subtly. She moved to the door, cautiously, and opened it. Standing there was a woman in a beige coat, mid-40s, sharp red lipstick and eyes that had seen a lot. She flashed a press badge. Miss Williams, I'm Camille Roston from the Atlanta Register. I was hoping for a moment of your time. Maya didn't hide her irritation. How did you find me? Camille didn't flinch. The same way every good story finds its source. Persistence. And a little help from someone who thinks your voice matters. Adam Fielder? Camille offered the slightest nod. Elliot Sr. appeared behind Maya. His posture changed the second he saw Camille. Miss Roston, he said, voice cool. I believe you've already received our statement through legal. I have, she replied. But I'm not here for you, Mr. Carter. I'm here for her. She turned back to Maya. May I come in? Maya stared at her a moment, then stepped aside. Camille entered, took one look at Lorraine's living room, small, neat, decorated with framed Bible verses and a wall clock shaped like a rooster, and sat carefully on the edge of the floral couch. I'm not here to dig dirt, Camille began, but people need to hear the truth from you. Maya crossed her arms. And what truth is that? That I performed CPR while being yanked and slapped? That I was treated like a criminal until your storybook Billionaire vouched for me? Camille stayed calm. The public doesn't know the details. They know whispers, internet threads, speculation. You were cast as a threat before they even knew your name. Maya's jaw tightened. I'm giving you the chance to tell it your way, Camille continued. Unfiltered. Your voice, your words, not mine. Elliot Sr. stepped in, his tone firm. If this is about spinning the story for clicks, it's not, Camille interrupted. Frankly, it doesn't need spinning. The facts are enough. Maya looked from Camille to Elliot, then to Lorraine, who stood in the kitchen doorway with a dish towel in hand and concern in her eyes. Finally, Maya spoke. What would I even say? Camille smiled. Not the kind you give for charm, but one that said thank you for not shutting the door. You'd say what happened, that you were afraid, that you acted anyway, that you didn't expect gratitude, but didn't deserve suspicion. That sometimes, when a child begs you to save his father, you don't stop to ask who he is. You just do it. The silence that followed was thick. Elliot Jr., unbothered by adult tension, leaned toward Maya and whispered, You should tell them. You're braver than anyone. She looked at Camille. One interview. My terms. One version. The truth. Camille nodded. That's all I ever ask. You. As the reporter left, Maya sat back down at the table. Her appetite gone, but her resolve sharpened. Elliot Sr. looked at her. Are you sure about this? No, Maya said. But I'm tired of letting other people write my story for me. She stood, glanced at the white coat still hanging on the chair, and added softly, It's time they heard the whole truth, even if it hurts. The lights in the small recording studio were soft but focused. No flashing bulbs, no makeup artists. Just a single camera, a table, 2 microphones, and Maya's folded hands resting calmly in front of her. Camille Roston sat across from her, dressed in muted navy, notepad open but barely used. She'd already done the background work. What she wanted now was truth, not trivia. The video was being filmed for a segment titled, One Night, One Choice. It would air in a week, but Maya had final approval before it saw daylight. Still, the red recording light glared like judgment. You ready? Camille asked gently. Maya didn't nod. She simply looked up and began speaking. I was waiting for a bus when he found me. Just a little boy. Soaking wet. Barely old enough to tie his own shoes. He looked at me with these wide eyes and said, Ma'am, please save my dad. That was it. No explanation, no warning, Just a plea. She paused. The words hung in the air like the moment itself. I followed him to the car. His father was slumped over the wheel, cold, not breathing right. I checked his pulse and started CPR. I didn't have a medical bag, or gloves, or a team. Just my hands. And my memory. Camille didn't interrupt. Maya continued, her voice steady but soft. I used to be a nurse, trained, certified. I lost that license after speaking up against someone with more power than me. They called it insubordination. I called it integrity. Her fingers curled slightly on the table. That night, none of that mattered. I saw a man dying, and I chose to fight for him. I didn't ask who he was. I didn't know he was a billionaire. I didn't know his last name or his politics. All I knew was his child was watching. She swallowed, her jaw tightening. And then his mother arrived. She paused again, not for drama, but to keep her emotions from spilling. She saw a black woman leaning over her son and assumed the worst. She screamed. She hit me. She pulled me away from him. I tried to explain, but she didn't listen. The camera didn't flinch, and neither did Camille. I went back anyway, because the man was dying, and I was the only one who knew how to stop it. So I did, even while being accused, even while being struck, even when the cops arrived and cuffed me without asking a single question. Her voice caught slightly but didn't break. I didn't do it for applause or forgiveness. I did it because life is sacred, and because that child looked at me like I mattered. She leaned forward now, tone shifting slightly. We talk about justice in this country like it's a thing to be found in courts and laws. But sometimes, justice is just a woman doing the right thing in the dark, even when no one believes her. Especially then. Camille sat back. The silence afterward wasn't awkward. It was earned. Thank you, Maya, she said. That's all I needed. Maya nodded. Later that evening, the raw footage was sent to her phone. She watched it alone at the kitchen table, earbuds in, the lights low. When the part came where she described being struck, she instinctively rubbed her shoulder, the bruises mostly gone now but their memory sharp. She didn't cry. Not this time. Instead, she clicked, approve, and sent it back. The segment aired the following Sunday night. It opened with a still shot of the Bentley under rain, emergency lights flashing in the background. Camille's voice narrated, but the heartbeat of the piece was Maya's own words. Within minutes of airing, it went viral. Not because it was dramatic, not because it was political, but because it was honest. On Monday morning, Maya's inbox was full. Messages from nurses who'd been pushed out of hospitals, women who had survived discrimination in silence, strangers thanking her for her courage. A doctor from Boston offered her a mentorship program. A civil rights attorney offered to reopen her license case pro bono. Even more surprising, a letter arrived, handwritten in elegant script. Dear Miss Williams, I watched your interview. For the first time, I didn't see a threat. I saw grace. I'm ashamed of how I treated you. I'm working on that. Thank you for showing my grandson what true strength looks like. Helen Carter. Maya read it 3 times, then folded it and tucked it into her journal. At the hospital, Elliot Sr. met her at the front lobby with 2 cups of coffee. I saw it, he said. She nodded, taking one. You okay with what I said? I was relieved. They walked through the lobby slowly. You weren't just telling your truth, he said. You were telling mine too, and that scares me in a good way. She smiled. You'll get used to it. He looked at her, serious. You changed everything, Maya. You didn't just save my life, you made me look at it differently. That's not my job, she replied. No, he said, but maybe it's your gift. As they passed the reception desk, a young black nurse caught Maya's eye. Miss Williams, the nurse said. Maya turned. I just wanted to say thank you for giving all of us permission to not keep quiet anymore. Maya's throat tightened. She gave a small, respectful nod. Thank you for saying that. When they stepped outside, the sun was setting in gold behind the skyline. Elliot Jr. ran ahead, chasing a pigeon, laughing. You're not going to disappear again, right? Elliot Sr. asked. No, Maya said. I've spent enough time being invisible. And as the city exhaled behind them, the woman once accused, once silenced, once bruised, walked forward with her shoulders square and her voice finally her own. Elliot Carter Sr. stared out the 12th floor window of Carter Financial Group, his gaze fixed on the skyline he once thought he owned. The morning sun gleamed off the high-rise glass, but his mind wasn't on quarterly reports or IPOs. His thoughts were still back at Maya's kitchen table, and on the broadcast that had shaken the city just days earlier. The boardroom behind him buzzed quietly. Half a dozen directors shuffled papers, cleared throats, exchanged wary glances. Elliot had called this emergency meeting with no agenda. That alone unsettled them. Billionaires didn't do surprises, not in business. When he finally turned to face them, his voice was calm but clipped. "We need to talk about legacy." That got their attention. "Legacy?" barked Raymond Klein, head of strategy, early 60s, with a watch worth more than some small cars. "Sir, with all due respect, we have to address the stockholder fallout from the Channel 8 segment first." "I am addressing it," Elliot replied evenly. "Maya Williams is our legacy now, or rather how we respond to her is." Murmurs rippled across the table. "Are you suggesting we issue a public statement?" asked one director. "No," Elliot said. "I'm suggesting we act. No press stunt, no damage control, actual reform." The CFO, a younger man named Garrett, frowned. "What does that mean in practical terms?" Elliot stepped forward. "It means we evaluate every division where unconscious bias may have influenced hiring, discipline, or promotion. It means funding scholarships not just through our foundation but embedded into company policy. And it means re-examining our own board diversity starting today." Raymond leaned forward. "This is about guilt, isn't it?" "No," Elliot said. "It's about truth and courage. Something a woman without a dollar to her name showed more of than most of us combined." Someone whispered, "He's serious." Elliot looked around the room, no longer the tired man in a hospital bed but the one who built an empire brick by brick. His voice dropped lower. "You think this is charity. It's not. It's correction. It's justice that's long overdue, and it's profitable. You want the public to trust us? Show them why they should." For a moment, no one dared speak. Then, slowly, one hand clapped. It was Eloise Patterson, the company's chief legal counsel. She was one of the few women and the only black woman on the executive team. "That's the first time in years I've heard this board talk about doing something, instead of covering something." Elliot nodded to her. "Would you lead the internal audit?" "With pleasure," she said. "And for the record, about damn time." Meanwhile, across town, Maya stood outside the old clinic on Peachtree Road. It had once been a vibrant community health center, but the funding had dried up years ago, and it shut down like so many others serving low-income families. Today, though, a new sign was going up. The Maya Williams Community Care Center opening soon. She couldn't believe it. Not because she didn't dream of something like it, but because it had actually happened. The funding? A combination of Carter Foundation backing and a wave of donations that poured in after the interview aired some large, most small, many anonymous. Notes had accompanied some. "My daughter is alive because a nurse like you didn't give up. You reminded me why I joined medicine in the first place. Thank you for protecting our sons when no one else did." Inside, walls were being painted. Exam tables delivered. Maya walked through the space, clipboard in hand, greeting volunteers, answering questions. Her white coat now had the